Good morning, everyone. Today I want to talk about something that runs deeper than just keeping secrets or holding back on details of our day-to-day lives. It's about the idea of boundaries, about authenticity, and about what it really means to live a life that feels fully our own. We live in a world that often pressures us to share. We're encouraged to put everything out there on social media, in conversations, in meeting rooms, even at family dinners. But sometimes sharing can cross over into a form of exposure that leaves us vulnerable in ways we don't even realize. And when we overshare or feel compelled to give away every detail, something profound happens. We start losing connection with our own story. We start to confuse openness with overexposure, vulnerability with validation seeking, authenticity with full disclosure. But real strength comes from knowing what not to share. Real confidence means choosing who we let in, what we let out, and most importantly, why we're doing it. It's about building our lives with intention, learning to protect the sacred parts of our stories so that we can keep our connection to ourselves strong. Genuine and fully intact boundaries aren't walls, they're safeguards that allow us to protect what's precious and essential in our lives. They create a sense of safety and clarity, defining the spaces between us and the world around us. With boundaries in place, we're able to control what enters our lives and what we keep within. They give us a sense of ownership over our time, energy, and emotions, allowing us to engage with others in a way that feels healthy and sustainable. When we set boundaries, we're not just keeping things out, we're actively choosing what to let in. Boundaries help us make intentional choices about who has access to our thoughts, emotions, and personal stories. This protects us from feeling overwhelmed or exposed and allows us to show up in ways that feel authentic and supportive. Boundaries also make it possible to build deeper, more trusting relationships. By deciding who we let into our inner circle and at what level we create connections based on mutual respect and understanding rather than obligation or fear of judgment. Boundaries empower us to protect our inner lives. They give us the space to reflect on our experiences and process our feelings without interference. This breathing room is essential for personal growth. It's where we find clarity and direction in our lives. Authenticity is about showing up as we truly are, but it doesn't mean we have to share everything. It's rooted in honesty with ourselves and others, yet it requires discernment to know what parts of our story are truly relevant in a given moment. Authenticity is about presenting our real selves, but it's also about making mindful choices about what we reveal and why. Just because something is true doesn't mean it needs to be shared with everyone. Some aspects of our lives are meant to be private, allowing us to retain a sense of autonomy over our inner worlds. True authenticity involves recognizing the value of holding certain details close, understanding that vulnerability doesn't require us to expose every part of ourselves. When we're selective, we're better able to nurture relationships with depth and intention, ensuring that our connections are built on trust rather than a need for approval or validation. It allows us to create boundaries around our personal stories, reserving certain parts of our lives for those who have earned our trust. Authenticity isn't about putting ourselves on display. It's about being real and honoring our own comfort and readiness in sharing. The cost of overexposure goes beyond external reactions. It affects how we relate to our own story. When we share our thoughts, feelings, and experiences too freely, we may begin to lose touch with their personal significance. As we open up to others, we become susceptible to their interpretations and opinions, which can influence our self-perception in ways that aren't always supportive. This can make it challenging to stay grounded in our own truth, especially when people respond in ways that feel dismissive, invalidating, or even intrusive. Overexposure can also drain our emotional energy. Constantly sharing our personal lives, especially with those who may not value or respect our boundaries, can leave us feeling vulnerable, exposed, and even exploited. Without sufficient boundaries, we may feel pressured to continue sharing, creating a cycle of giving more of ourselves than feels healthy. Relying on inner validation rather than external approval means finding fulfillment and confidence from within, rather than seeking it through others' opinions or praise. When we focus on inner validation, we develop a deep trust in ourselves that isn't easily swayed by outside judgment. This sense of self-acceptance empowers us to move through life with clarity, knowing that our worth isn't tied to anyone else's assessment. It frees us from the constant need to prove ourselves or seek validation from others, allowing us to act authentically based on our own values and principles. Seeking external approval, on the other hand, can lead to self-doubt and a loss of autonomy. When we rely on others to affirm our choices, we give away our power, allowing their reactions to influence our decisions and ultimately our sense of self-worth. This dependence on others for validation can create a cycle where we adjust who we are to fit others' expectations rather than staying true to who we genuinely are. It's exhausting to constantly chase approval, and it can prevent us from connecting with our true passions, beliefs, and goals. By grounding ourselves in inner validation, we cultivate a resilient sense of self that doesn't waver in the face of criticism or rejection. We become less susceptible to the influence of fleeting opinions, and instead, we create a foundation rooted in self-respect, self-compassion, and self-awareness. Privacy and secrecy may appear similar, but they serve distinct purposes and carry different emotional weight. Privacy is a healthy boundary that respects our right to keep parts of our lives for ourselves or to share only with select individuals. It's a form of self-care, acknowledging that not all experiences or thoughts need to be public or shared with everyone. Privacy allows us to maintain control over our personal stories, fostering a sense of ownership and independence in managing what we disclose. Secrecy, however, often comes with feelings of shame, fear, or guilt. While privacy is a choice we make to protect our well-being, secrecy is usually driven by the desire to hide something we're uncomfortable with or afraid others might judge. Unlike privacy, secrecy can feel like a burden, creating a disconnect between our true selves and how we present ourselves to the world. This tension can lead to anxiety as we expend energy trying to keep certain parts of our lives hidden out of fear of negative consequences. Embracing privacy empowers us to share selectively, not out of fear, but out of respect for our own boundaries. It acknowledges that we can hold onto parts of our experiences without diminishing their value or importance. Privacy lets us keep sacred spaces within ourselves, free from scrutiny, allowing us the freedom to process our experiences without the pressure of outside opinions or misunderstandings. Inner reflection before sharing allows us to process our thoughts and emotions privately, helping us gain clarity and insight into what we've experienced. When we rush to share something immediately, we risk losing the depth of our own understanding, as our focus shifts from personal processing to external reactions. Taking time for inner reflection creates a pause that lets us absorb and appreciate the full weight of an experience, allowing it to settle in a way that feels authentic and meaningful to us. Reflecting internally also gives us the space to evaluate the potential impact of sharing our story with others. It allows us to ask ourselves why we feel the need to share and whether it serves a constructive purpose. This internal check-in can reveal if we're sharing out of a desire for validation, connection, or simply to be heard, helping us to be mindful about who we open up to and why. By reflecting first, we can choose whether a particular moment or thought is best kept private, shared selectively, or expressed in a different way. Inner reflection also helps us preserve our emotional energy. Processing our experiences within ourselves first means we're less likely to seek understanding or sympathy from others as a primary need, reducing the risk of disappointment if others don't respond in the ways we'd hoped. Instead, we enter interactions with a sense of groundedness and intention, making it easier to maintain our emotional boundaries. Through reflection, we become better stewards of our stories, choosing when and how to share in ways that honor both our experiences and our well-being. Protecting the sacredness of our personal growth means honoring the deeply personal nature of our own transformation and allowing it to unfold without external pressure or scrutiny. Personal growth is a journey that requires vulnerability, patience, and introspection, and it often involves navigating parts of ourselves that are raw, unformed, or still in flux. By safeguarding these tender parts of our evolution, we create a space that respects the sensitivity and depth of our experiences, allowing them to develop without the influence of outside opinions or judgments. When we share too much of our growth process prematurely, we risk diluting the experience or opening ourselves up to interpretations that may not align with our true intentions or understanding. Growth is often complex and layered, involving changes that may be hard to articulate to others. By keeping these parts of ourselves protected, we give our transformation the room to settle and integrate fully without interference from external perspectives that could distract us from our own path. This act of preservation is also a way to build resilience and self-trust. When we hold space for our growth privately, we learn to rely on our own insights and intuitions rather than seeking external validation. This nurtures a sense of inner strength and independence, reinforcing our ability to navigate challenges and make decisions in ways that feel true to ourselves. Protecting the sacredness of our growth means recognizing that not every aspect of our journey needs to be shared, celebrated, or approved by others. Instead, it's a personal, often quiet process that we nurture within. Protecting the sacredness of our personal growth means honoring the deeply personal nature of our own transformation and allowing it to unfold without external pressure or scrutiny. Personal growth is a journey that requires vulnerability, patience, and introspection, and it often involves navigating parts of ourselves that are raw, unformed, or still in flux. By safeguarding these tender parts of our evolution, we create a space that respects the sensitivity and depth of our experiences, allowing them to develop without the influence of outside opinions or judgments. When we share too much of our growth process prematurely, we risk diluting the experience or opening ourselves up to interpretations that may not align with our true intentions or understanding. Growth is often complex and layered, involving changes that may be hard to articulate to others. By keeping these parts of ourselves protected, we give our transformation the room to settle and integrate fully without interference from external perspectives that could distract us from our own path. This act of preservation is also a way to build resilience and self-trust. When we hold space for our growth privately, we learn to rely on our own insights and intuitions rather than seeking external validation. This nurtures a sense of inner strength and independence, reinforcing our ability to navigate challenges and make decisions in ways that feel true to ourselves. Protecting the sacredness of our growth means recognizing that not every aspect of our journey needs to be shared, celebrated, or approved by others. Instead, it's a personal, often quiet process that we nurture within.